Welcome to GRN, the Growth and Resilience Network, where every episode brings you targeted stories and strategies for personal growth and resilience. I'm Steve Piscitelli, your host, coming to you from my world headquarters here in Atlantic Beach, Florida. Today's episode takes a look at the connection between personal disabilities, growth, and resilience. Consider the following. About 19% of the total United States population, according to the U.S. Census Bureau in 2010, had a disability. A more specific disability is vision impairment, which is defined by the Centers for Disease Control as vision that cannot be corrected to normal vision. Again, according to the Census Bureau, about 8.1 million people had difficulty seeing in 2010, and about 2 million of those were totally blind. Now, there is a point for me bringing that up. I'll get to that in a moment. During my more than 3 decades in the classroom, I had the challenge and the pleasure to work with students of varying exceptionalities. And I say challenge because they stretch me in a good way. They stretch my abilities as a teacher and as a human being. I was always amazed at the perseverance and grit my students with disabilities had. I really cannot remember one student, adolescent or adult, ever bemoaning his or her plight. Somehow, some way, they soldiered through, and usually with a smile, and often doing better than the so-called non-disabled students in the classroom. So, how in the world did they do it? They literally, as cliche as it sounds, they were inspiring. Now today we're going to drill down on this topic of perseverance in the face of disabilities. And here to help us is a dear lifelong friend, Miss Eileen Crawford. Well, at least lifelong since college. I first met Eileen when we were both students at Jacksonville University in Jacksonville, Florida. Vivacious, always ready with a smile, and she'd keep you on your toes. I tell you, she was one of the top students at JU, actively involved in the university and the issues that her organizations. She even dated one of the star university baseball players. Eventually married that fella. That's Brian. They, in fact, when her and Brian, right after they got out of college, they sang for their dinners, literally sang for their dinners up and down the East Coast, entertaining crowds with her nightingale-like voice and Brian playing the piano. Now, Eileen has been is virtually blind and has been since birth. The visual impairment never, ever slowed her down. I want to know how she did that. And she, along with Brian, had 3 children. They still do. Their ages are 32, 28, and 24. She and Brian have been blissfully married for 37 years. I asked Eileen to tell me a little bit about herself. Well, she told me how she finished high school a year early. She's got 2 master's degrees. She's got she's a Florida licensed mental health counselor. She's in private practice. She loves music. She's very community involved. She's now serving as the president of the board of trustees for the Celebration Foundation, which works to improve lives in Central Florida through programs in education, arts, and social services. But when I said describe yourself, here's what she told me. Honestly, I do not describe myself at all. I actually hate labels and descriptors of people. So what I had to do was to reach out to one of her daughters to describe her. So this is how her daughter Bryn describes her. And yeah, Eileen has no idea I am going to read this. She hasn't seen this, folks. My mom is amazing. Most importantly, she says, she is the glue that keeps everything running in our crazy family. She said, she is accomplished. more in 58 years than most non-handicapped people could ever dream of accomplishing in their lifetime. She's got 2 master's degrees. She juggled a train commute in Philly while raising young children. She helped move the family several times, all the while always making sure to keep the house, whichever one we were in, decorated for the holidays. She started her own business, now continues to run that business, and all the while serving as president of our town's most important board, the Celebration Foundation. I love the idea, the glue. She said, the reality is Dad traveled a lot. She may not know this, Bryn said, but she is a huge reason I'm going after my MBA. I want to do it for myself, yes, but that's because I saw, well, not totally because I wasn't alive yet, but I saw my mom do it. That is, get her MBA, and make it seem not only doable but worthwhile. She makes me believe that I can do anything I set my mind to, because she is living proof of that. So, Eileen, I am glad you didn't describe yourself, because that was wonderful.
Well, I'm glad I didn't either.
So let's welcome Miss Eileen Crawford to the GRN studio. Eileen, welcome, my friend.
Hi, Steve.
That's a heck of an introduction.
Yeah, wow. I think we're done. This was great. I love being here.
All right, let's start off with, tell the listeners a little bit about the nature of your visual disability.
Sure. I was born, actually, and when I was born has something to do with it as well. Back in the 50s, yes, that far back, I was born with cataracts in both eyes, and so at that time, what that meant for an infant is that I was completely blind. I would only see, apparently from what I'm told, some light, but everything was just a giant blur, and I couldn't make out anything. So I was completely blind, diagnosed at 3 months as being blind. At that time, it was treated quite differently than it is now. And I had surgeries, a series of surgeries as a toddler, and by the time I was about 2.5, I had gained some vision. And so I do not have any artificial or long-term lenses implanted in my eyes. My eyes cannot handle that. So I only use thick glasses or exterior lenses to help me see. I have nystagmus and astigmatism, those kinds of fun things that you get. And the only other kind of oddity that I think is kind of interesting and that we've since learned from the 50s is that if someone is not using their eyes to see, that there are pathways between the brain and the eyes that shut down. Oh. So as a result of not having vision in those 2 years, unfortunately, I had some pathways that were never used. And so there are some things that are a little more difficult for me, like recognizing people. Right. Other than that, I just don't drive, and that's pretty much it.
Do you remember, which, I mean, obviously as a toddler, you don't remember it, right. But what's the earliest recollection that Eileen has of I can't see?
Oh, gosh. The earliest recollection I have of I can't see. I remember being really, really, really little. And this stuck with me through my entire childhood, really hating my glasses. And so my mom would tell me that even as a toddler, and I obviously needed those glasses to see anything, but I didn't like having them on my nose. They were very heavy then. They always kind of cut my nose a little bit. So I was always taking them off and throwing them somewhere. And my mom would tell me they would run out and have everybody turn off the lawnmowers, and everyone in the neighborhood would be scurrying around looking for my glasses. So I did not understand the correlation of keeping them on my head and that I needed them to see.
Wow. Wow. Now, I'm going to apologize right up front. I know that's the cardinal sin when you're a presenter. You never apologize.
Oh, I love it when you apologize.
Well, I'm going to apologize for what's going to seem like a trite, maybe even a cliche question. Has this been a disability or an opportunity for you to develop ways of coping, thriving, being resilient that, many of us took decades to learn? And has your perspective changed over the different eras of your life?
Well, first part of the question, is it a disability or an opportunity? I would say, to be truthfully honest, it's both. I actually don't ascribe to the word disability for me personally. I like to think of living with my vision issues as a physical challenge. And I guess I'll touch on that, perhaps a little. I won't go into my soapbox about that now, but that's how I see it. And I think that it has been both a physical challenge or a challenge, and it's an opportunity. And I guess the way to summarize that is that with some of the limitations that have come with it, there's sort of a constant stream of problems that require creative solutions. And
can you give us a for instance?
Oh, goodness, pick. Really, pretty much getting anywhere, or as an adult, getting my children anywhere. And, living in Florida now, which has been really, really helpful for my independence. But we also have our rainy summers. So I tend to ride my bike everywhere. And when the thunderstorms come, it always, even the best laid plans have to be changed around a bit. So it's been an opportunity. But what I was going to mention is that what I think is kind of cool is lots of problems to solve, but then again, lots of practice in solving problems.
Yes.
And so if we were thinking about it, that's what makes it the opportunity. So I think it's both of those things. And as far as you asked if there's a time of life that was more difficult, is that what you were asking?
Yeah, when it kind of goes into, like when you look at your biggest challenge, say pre-college, or college, or after college, was there a period or was there an era that you look at and you say, well, that was really difficult because of the vision impairment? Or every era have its own little challenge?
I would say that the vision impairment did play into some things, but it wasn't just the vision impairment. So my example of that would be when I was a little child, elementary school, toddler. We lived in Pennsylvania, and I remember that as being a very happy time. I had accommodations in my school. The teacher used big, thick chalk. I had this special desk made for me. I was up near the front of the class, but I was mainstreamed into a regular class. And I just thought I was just like everybody else. I had no idea that I was any different. But when we moved, our family moved when I was 11, and we moved to Maryland, and suddenly I went to a new school. And then I started getting teased for my thick glasses, and all of a sudden it was very hard to make new friends. Is that the move, or is that the eyes? Not sure, but it took a real big, a real big belly flop into my self-esteem for quite a while.
And how old were you then?
I was 11, and I would say from 11 to 17 were very difficult years for me. That's when a child, I always call it, I do a lot of work with students now in my counseling, and I call it the middle school minefield. And I was in the middle school minefield where many children have trouble with their self-esteem. The thick glasses made that more difficult, I think. And so I didn't really like myself very much, or think I was attractive, or think I was cute for the boys, or, all those things that girls go through with lots of other things, too. So, and college, super fun. Lots of fun. Great time. As you know, because I knew you then. It was really good. Really good. And then as an adult, I think maturity has been my friend, and it has helped me come to terms with things.
If you don't mind, let's go back to the middle school. What did you call that? What was
the middle school minefield.
The middle school minefield. Mm-hmm. For a parent who's listening who might have a child visually impaired or not going through that, but or maybe there's a middle schooler listening to this. How did you get through that? Because and it is tough for so many middle schoolers. Yeah. How did you get through that?
Well, let me think about that. How did I get through that in middle school? I'll be really honest with you. Sometimes I'd go in my room and cry, and my mom would always come in and check on me, and I would generally sometimes tell her maybe, sort of, what was going on, maybe not, and she would be great. She would say, well, I know you're sad, cry, get it out, but then get up and wipe your face and come out. We got stuff to do. And that's pretty much what I remember, is that I'd let myself feel it, and then I'd allow myself a certain amount of pity party time, and then I would work hard to get myself involved in something else. I also had wonderful friends and a wonderful family, and all of that helped a lot.
And that leads into a question I wanted to ask you about your parents. That, what did they do or not do that helped you the most? Now, you just mentioned one incident, which seems like that probably played out a number of times in the middle school minefield period. Was there? It sounds like your parents did not treat you as somebody with a disability. They said, we got things to do.
Yeah.
And how many other siblings? How many siblings do you have?
I am the third of four, and the four of us are within 5 years of each other. So very boom, 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 boom. Yeah.
And did the siblings help, or did they?
Sure, they did.
Did they cause you to buck up, Bucko, real quick?
I think if you were to ask them, we wouldn't want to do that. I remember them complaining, thinking that I was getting special treatment. But at the time, to me, it didn't feel like that. I think there are a few things that my parents did that I think were really integral. One was, the first one, you have to start at the beginning. The first one was when I had the diagnosis of the cataracts. Very rare in a baby to be born with cataracts. And at that time, we were not as advanced medically as we are now. And so the outcome was not necessarily that I was going to get any vision. The more likely outcome was that I was going to be blind for the rest of my life. And my parents moved heaven and earth to get the best medical care for me that they could. So I don't think we can even have the rest of the conversation without acknowledging their thoroughness and the effort that they took to get me the very best care. Then once I had my vision, they made a conscious decision between the two of them that they were going to rear me to live in a sighted world. You asked me one of my first memories about knowing I had an eye issue. When I was about 6, a man came to our house. I don't know why I remember this, but I do. Man came to our house, and he sat down with my parents, and he wanted to put me in a school for the blind. And my dad, I won't say he threw him out, but it was pretty close. I mean, he just would have nothing to do with it and said, everybody in this world, most people see she's going to learn how to maneuver in a sighted world. And that was their plan from the beginning. When I was a little bit, about maybe 6.5, because it was right around the same time, my dad taught me to ride a bicycle. And my mom was beside herself. I give her great credit because she wasn't comfortable with this at all, for good reason, actually. But my dad was determined that I had some way to get around on my own. And to this day, as you know, but to this day, I ride my electric bicycle to work every day. And it has been really a lifeline for me, a lifeline of independence, is having that bicycle. And my mom never told me not to get on the bike. She would, every time I fell, she would clean me up and patch me up and tell me to get back up again, and I did. So I give them a lot of credit for those decisions. I think they must have been difficult.
Yeah, I'm thinking where so many young folks don't go out without a helmet.
Yeah.
And you're...
I didn't wear a helmet.
I wouldn't think so back then. Now, and then I guess for me, more than anybody else, probably the audience, or maybe somebody in the audience, but what is your eyesight? I mean, some of us are 20/20, some are 20/60. Is there even a number placed on it?
Corrected or uncorrected?
Well, give us uncorrected.
Uncorrected, we don't have it because I can't see 20 feet.
Wow. Okay.
So you have to see 20 feet to measure it. So uncorrected, I can't really see 20 feet, so there's really no measurement of it.
And again, you've mentioned this before, but uncorrected for you is taking the glasses off your face.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, yeah.
Okay, now, corrected.
Corrected, it's actually not horrible. My left eye is about 20/60. and that's my strongest eye. Because of some of those other issues I mentioned earlier, I have very limited peripheral vision. I don't do well with steps and shadows, things like that. So there's some other things that come into play. But for pure distance, it's 20/60 in my left eye and about 2200 or so in my right eye, which is largely along for the ride.
You have to be somewhat fearless, Eileen, to do what you have done. I mean, get on a bike.
Well, here's the good news. I don't see the stuff that other people see that they're afraid of. So it's not really that I'm fearless. I live in just blissful ignorance most of the time.
Do you think your disability, your challenge, whatever you label it as, has helped you as a therapist?
Oh, yes. I went through a time when I was training, especially when they were training us on reading nonverbal cues. And I went to my mentor and professor and I said, I'm not sure if I'll be able to do this because I can't really see some of those nonverbal cues. And my mentor said, oh, honey, you have no problem because, and I thought this was interesting and I actually agree with her. She said, you pick up sound and language and nuance better than anybody in the class. So she said what you lack in vision, you pick up in your hearing and in the way you interpret what else is going on in the room. And so I thought that was interesting, and I think that's true. I think I have developed a very strong sense of hearing. Separate and apart from that, I also think I have a much more developed sense of empathy and understanding. By coincidence or by reputation, I am having more and more folks come see me who are living with physical challenges, including quite a few visually impaired people who are my clients. And I think they come to me because they're comfortable coming to me, right. and they think I get it.
In case I might forget this later, is there a website anybody who might be interested in what you do could go to? Sure,
yeah. My website is Counseling for Family Health, all the 4 words spelled out, all put together, counselingforfamilyhealth.com.
Okay, that might be something interesting.
Sure.
And picking up further on this, I know you talked about middle school, but did you ever go through any prolonged period of feeling sorry for yourself and just saying, why me, Lord? Why not? I mean, why me? Everybody else is normal, quote unquote, whatever that means, but why me?
Prolonged period of feeling sorry for myself. I remember having a very difficult time right after our move. For about a year. I cried every day for about a year. It was not a good adjustment. I had a really tough time. And I think that's when my parents decided they would not move the family again. And I also had a difficult time as an adult when I was trying to get licensed as a mental health counselor, and I had started several different, and when you get licensed, I don't want to bore your audience, but you have to accumulate lots of contact hours with clients. And so I would piece together ways to get jobs to get to these contact hours under the rules that had to exist, and then those practices would close, or the state would stop funding, and so it was a very long journey, and I got very discouraged. Those are the only 2 times in my life I can remember being discouraged, and I was discouraged for a long period of time. Why me, Lord? Never once. I've never once. I remember as a child, both my parents at different times would say stuff to me. It was so sad. They would say stuff feeling guilty about what they had done or what had happened that had created the vision issue. And I always said to them, don't worry about it. It's done. This is how God wants me to be. It is what it is. This is how I'm supposed to be. Wow. I've never thought about it.
Interesting. I had a question here. I think I already answered it by listening to you. Did the disability ever slow you down? It doesn't. I mean, obviously there were certain practical considerations. Yeah. But you just, I mean, and as an observer, and I've watched you for, God, I guess it's probably close to 40 years.
Yeah, a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. You just roll on. And in fact, in my notes here, I said, you just seem to roll right over most obstacles that present themselves.
Literally.
And pun intended, you never saw the obstacles.
There's a funny story about that, actually. And please, all you animal lovers, everything turned out okay. But when I was a kid, my brothers and all our neighborhood kids were playing a game called Run the Bases in our neighborhood. And I walked out, and I'm like, what are you doing? We're playing Run the Bases. Oh, can I play? Sure, yeah, you can play. And where are the bases? Well, there's this one down here, and there's that white base over there. And basically, it was where one guy is throwing the ball, and you try to get to the base before the ball gets to the base.
Gotcha.
So I take off, and I go running, and I'm shocked that I'm going to beat the ball because these guys are good. And I run to the base, and I jump up and down. I'm so excited. I jump up, and I plant both feet on the ground, and my base screamed me out, jumped up, and ran away.
But the cat survived.
The cat survived, but boy, did everybody laugh, and I was mortified.
Yeah. Oh, God. Now, listen, I'd venture to say that many of our listeners don't have disabilities, and especially not the visual disabilities and challenges at your level. So help us understand, and maybe this is where the therapist comes in, or maybe this is Eileen the person coming in, not the therapist, or both. What did you learn about resilience over the years? What did you learn about personal growth, even when there are those challenges that make you go into the room and cry at times?
What did I learn about resilience or personal challenge? Well, I think there are a couple of things that I have learned. And one is kind of ironic considering the way you phrased the question. There are people out there who don't have disabilities. I think what I've learned is actually, and yes, this does come also from being a therapist, I think just about everybody has a disability, if you want to call it that. It might not be a physical one, but everybody has something that creates a challenge for them to be able to kind of be the person they want to be or live the life that they want to live. It may not be their own physical challenge. It could be a family responsibility, or it could be actually a physical thing that you don't see, that's invisible to others. It can be mental health issues. It could be just about financial issues. It can be just about anything. But they all serve as disabilities that can get in our way and make it more difficult to accomplish, the life that we want to accomplish.
And then when it comes to resilience, regardless of whatever that challenge might be,
right?
And I think you and I have, or at least you have mentioned this to me, that part of resilience is reaching out.
Yes, I have. Yes, I tell everybody that.
And it's this idea that, well, you explained it. Why reach out? Why not just tough it up and just go?
Right. Well, and this partly is actually when I got to grad school, I was very interested in that. I had known some families that had faced some similar life circumstances, and one family, everybody pulled together. It brought the family closer. They grew through that challenge. Another family, it tore them apart, and everybody went their separate ways. It was very sad, and I was so intrigued. It was like, what's the difference? And that's what you're talking about. And I think it really boils down to when a person can get to a place where they see that, yes, this is a challenge in my life, but if I have to get through it because this is the only life I got. I've got to get through it, right? No one else is going to fix it for me. But I have the opportunity to grow from this. I can learn something. I will be different as a result of this. I have clients all the time who go through horrible things, and they're changed by those experiences. But that can be very, very positive. And so people who are open to growth and change, even from a bad experience, are the people who are most resilient. And why? We're social beings. We are not meant to be isolated. Think about babies in orphanages who are never held, never nurtured. Those are the babies that develop an inability to attach to other human beings. We as human beings are social beings. So when we are kind of in the trenches, it does help us to reach out and let other people help us.
When you think of your career, most significant accomplishment to date?
Well, that's an easy one.
Okay.
When I think of my career, the most significant accomplishment is completing all the hours I had to complete, both to get my master's degree first and then to complete everything I had to complete to get my license in mental health counseling. You know, but I think your listeners might be surprised, even after I finished my 1,000 hours on graduate school, 1,500 hours with clients, masters, which took me many more years than in a normal situation. I was shocked to find that the state of Florida did not want to provide me the accommodations I needed to take the exam and be able to read it.
Remember when you were going through that?
And that was stunning to me, that in the 2000s we were in that place. So I ended up having to battle the state of Florida to get the accommodations I needed to take my exam, which and I did. So what am I most proud of? I'm proud of the fact that I actually finished it, accomplished it, and I love my work. So I'm proud that I was able to get that done so that I can do the work that I enjoy doing.
Most significant personal accomplishment?
Ah, you know the answer to that one. Any parent that's listening knows the answer to that one. So my most significant personal accomplishment is that I have, along with my husband, managed, and our friends, to rear three relatively well-adjusted, three wonderful adult children who really contribute, and they contribute to the world and make it a better place. And I'm very proud of that. I really wanted them to be contributors, not takers. And all three of them are, and so there's nothing better than could have happened there.
Yeah, I think one of your kids sent to me, and they referred to the three of them as semi-normal.
There you go. We'll take it.
All right, listen. Before I get to the fun lightning round, and before we close with you boiling it down to a couple of thoughts, I want to make sure that I haven't missed the opportunity to let you speak to something that you really wanted to say something about. And I like to do that with my guests so that, when we're done, you say, my gosh, I really wanted to put this in. Is there anything, and you don't have to, you could be very fine with where we have been in the territory we've covered, but is there anything else that you would like to say that you haven't had the opportunity to?
Yeah, actually, as you were talking, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what haven't I gotten to say? But actually, there was one thing that I was thinking about before I came in, and that was this idea of other parents who may be parents of children with physical challenges. Mm-hmm. And do I have any thoughts for those parents? And I guess I do have something I want to say about that.
Please.
I think it's absolutely imperative for parents, for all of us, to believe in our children's ability to succeed. And even if we can't see how they're going to solve a particular problem, how they're going to climb up those stairs, or how they're going to get from point A to point B, to always, every day, set the expectation that they will do it, and send them the belief that they will do it, and not try to do everything for them. I think it's something that really concerns me, because by them practicing every day, they learn how to solve their problems. And when they become adults on their own, that's what they're going to need. And then the other piece of that is for parents to have fun with their children who are facing challenges. Have fun, laugh with them, play with them, do fun stuff. Don't allow the challenge or the disability to become the focus of the family. It's just something that needs to be managed along with making dinner and everything else. Yeah. And then the center of our family is our love and the fun we have together, and the work that we're doing.
Yeah. And as you were saying that, I saw that the way you raised your children. It was always, it was fun, and you had them grow up. And as you were saying it, Eileen, I'm hearing your mother say, okay, now it's time to get out of the bedroom. We have work to do.
Yeah.
Get
up and get moving.
All right, what would be a challenge, not a challenge, but what would be, when you're leaving our audience with a couple of thoughts? We've covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And we're talking about resilience. So a couple of thoughts about building resilience. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say, I would encourage people to it's too many times we kind of get stuck in what's not working. You know, my eyes aren't good enough, or my legs aren't good enough, and I can't get here and I can't do that. With my, I'm a strength-based therapist, and what that means is when people come to me, I am all about, tell me what your strengths are. What are you good at? What do you like to do? What do other people tell you you're great at? So I would encourage people to take some time and think about their own strengths, their own gifts, and then also think about their family, their friends, their community resources, what's available to them through the state or through the federal government. And then you use all those as your tools to solve whatever problems you need to solve. And if the front door is locked and the back door is jammed and the windows are frozen shut, then you climb down the chimney.
Love it.
You know, get creative.
Get creative.
Yeah.
And you're very... your focus on the others, the support network, the group, and not going alone. That's part of the resilience factor, or if not.
It's really important. We know that people who allow others into their world and are willing to allow that to happen heal faster, recover better. We know this. So, and it's certainly been true in my own experience. And that can be hard to do. We all want to think we can do it all ourselves. But it's like, what are we trying to prove?
Yeah.
You know, so, yeah.
Powerful. So, folks, let me leave you with, as you know, I guess it's the old teacher in me, always a little homework, a little call to action. But think about what Eileen shared today, and I love the metaphor. So, you know, have you been facing a challenge recently that feels like it has locked the front door, barricaded the back door, sealed shut all the windows? You know, to borrow again Eileen's metaphor, where is your chimney? What area of your life can you access to help you with the challenge? And the second takeaway is so important from Eileen's thoughts here, is the idea, and we've heard other people on other episodes of this podcast channel talk about the importance of others and support, mentors, coaches, ministers, best friends, colleagues, family members. You know, I likened it to a board of directors. You know, do you have a board of directors? You know, who's your chief operating officer, your chief executive officer, and wellness officer, and questioning officer, and social officer, and so forth, and build on those folks. Now, I'm going to hit Eileen with a couple of questions that she has no idea.
Uh-oh.
First thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
We call this the fun lightning round.
Okay.
It is a new feature on the GRN podcast channel. You are an item on the local coffee shop menu. Are you a hot drink, iced drink, latte, sweet, strong? What are you?
Ooh, okay. I actually think I am an iced drink that is sweet but also strong.
Ooh. We walk into the local grocery store.
Okay.
Looking to find Eileen.
Oh, no.
What aisle do we find you on?
You find me mired looking at the bottles of wine, trying to figure out which one I'm going to buy.
You're a headline on the evening news. What does that say?
That says, legally blind woman again at the center of activity on what happened on Main Street. We've seen her in the middle of 4 or 5 different news stories this week.
And finally, you're a car. What make and model?
Oh, I would be something that goes really, really, really fast.
All right. Thank you, Eileen, and thank you, listeners. Without you, there is no Growth and Resilience Network. You know, visit my website, stevepiscitelli.com, for more information about upcoming conversations on the GRN and about my programs and other resources for your personal growth and resilience. You know, while you're there, sign up for my email or newsletter list, and I promise never to spam you. One more time, Eileen, what is your website?
My website is counselingforfamilyhealth.com.
Thank you. So until we meet again, either virtually or somewhere in person around this great nation, this is Steve Piscitelli from my world headquarters here in Atlantic Beach, Florida, reminding all of us to choose well, live well, and be well. Bye-bye, folks.